The next morning, as I'm opening up, I notice a commotion outside. A strong gust of wind blows through the street. And suddenly, something bright yellow flies across the shop front. My early morning daze has my mind screaming, UFO! I head outside to inspect the fallen extraterrestrial life form that threatens to harm the sanctity of my... Oh, it's a hat. It's a beret. A beret, colored a sickly mustard. A few people are hanging around the shop front ahead of me. I pick up the hat. One of them, whom I recognize as a baker lady from down the street, beams at me. Ah, there it is. Look, Dahlia. There's your hat. Dahlia, honey, look. Your hat. Oh. My beret. Oh, my beautiful beret. Oh, thank you. Bosses bless you. Dear girl. You're welcome. You have no idea how much misery you've saved me, dear. Really, it's no big deal. I'm taken aback momentarily. It's been a while since I've heard Mum's name spoken out loud. Oh, you're Hilda's daughter. What's wrong, Dahlia? She's the one. We saw that Tracer coming in and out of the jewelry store, remember? It's her. She's causing the rain. You're the one putting the whole neighborhood at risk. By the earth, is that right? Show some empathy, girl. Can't you see the chaos you're causing around us? And don't go thinking that this is just some harmless rain. Hannah and I have seen plenty of disastrous outbursts that seem innocuous at first. Isn't that right? I'm afraid so, Dahlia. I don't know a soul in this town that isn't afraid. It's not healthy for anyone. I'm sorry, I don't know what to say. I've seen these people around the neighborhood since I was a kid. I'm trying to control it. You're just gonna have to try harder, love. Don't you think, Wallace? Wallace? Sorry, what's the matter here? Flaring forces, Wallace, pay attention. This girl here's the cause of this rain. Oh, bother. Trying won't cut it, miss. And enough of this Tracer fellow. I don't want to see him again. It's no secret these fools only make matters worse. Deal with this on your lonesome. That's how I've always done it. Now then, we're off. I hope we got through to you. That is not how that works. Yes, look, love. I know it's tough at your age, especially with everything that's happening. Oh, please, Hannah. You've dealt with it. We've all lost someone close to us. You just have to tough it out. There's no other way. These young people don't know a thing about the real world, stuck in their computers and laptops and cell phones. Hold on a moment. Aren't you the one, that jeweler? The conduit that they say enchants jewelry? Yeah. Conduit? Enchanting? My word. It's really true? That can't be a good idea, love. I suggest you stop this nonsense immediately, unless you want the state investigating you for chaos crimes. What? Let's go. We have what we came for, and much more, unfortunately. If you need work, we could always use a hand at the bakery, and the library too, no? Oh, why of course. Big mad. And with that, they leave. My legs shake and my head throbs. What an excellent start to the big day ahead of me. I stand dumbfounded on the street for a few moments before shuffling back inside. I go out of my way to do a tiny good deed and get punished. Stupid flaring mustard beret. Who even wears berets? People who are adorable? Duh. Kawaii. I take a deep breath and settle in behind the counter. Try to pull my mind off the scornful glares. But the hatred in that lady's sunken eyes stays with me. Fear and disgust encroaches on my fleeting faint sense of peace that was settling into my spirit. All because I dared pick up a lady's tacky mustard beret? Lau comes in and approaches me at the counter.
Huh?
Twyla, what's wrong? I mumble an explanation of what just happened. Forget them, Twyla. You say they're neighbors, but they've done nothing to deserve even that much. Cowards, lashing out at the first sign of trouble? What pitiful... The winds gather into a howl, rumbling through the street and stunning Lau. Horses. We'd only just begun rejoicing over the rains dying down, and now the winds are growing severe, and the rain just got heavier too, didn't it? Lau casts me a worrisome glance. I'll be fine. Give me some time to think about it. Sure, but don't dwell on it. I'll be at the back. I won't. I doubt there's much behind the neighbors' threats. Uncle assured me the store was safe to operate now. But they used to be friendly with Mum. To think they'd suddenly be so hostile towards me. The ring of the bell jolts me out of my head and back behind the store's counter. Charmed to make your acquaintance. I'm Antonio. Charmed. I'm Twyla. How are you today? Not in the finest spirits, if I'm honest. But that's what I'm here to discuss, in fact. Yourself? You too, then. I feel myself squirm under his knowing gaze. That's adorable. Look at... Smile sincerely. Don't bother troubling yourself with fake pleasantries for me, Twyla. If you are truly to enchant a piece of jewelry for me personally, I'd prefer we're both relaxed. Thank you. And yes, I can do that for you. Just let me know what kind of piece you're after, and we can jump right into it. Of course, you see, I am soon to propose, and will be needing a ring. Ooh! But, perhaps that will come later. Yes. Never mind that for the time being. Could you please provide me with a nice necklace for now? I imagine that'll be a good anniversary present for my partner. Of course. And if you could incorporate an animal theme into it, I'd greatly appreciate it. Sure thing, coming right up. He's wearing a lot of gold, so I'll go with gold. I'm not sure if I'm getting worse or better at this. I'm getting worse, but maybe I have to take some steps back to keep going forward. It's hard to know. All I can do is take one step, then look where to place the other. What if Dahlia was right? Could I really be investigated for Payos crimes? She's just an old cranky lady. Let's not worry about her. I'm gonna ask Uncle the next time I see him, and leave the worrying for then. Why do people have no respect for Mum? Didn't she even make a piece for Dahlia once? Flair and stupid. And I'm risking Payos thinking of them, so I'm stupid too. Maybe they're just scared. People are so sensitive about this these days. Am I putting people at risk with my enchanting? Maybe, but you're trying to do good too. What else can you do? Stop. Just believe in Uncle for now. Worry later. What else can you do? How did I even get here? I don't know, but I'm making it work. After dealing with Maribel, I can handle anything. Life is weird. Never could I have thought I'd be doing whatever this is. Oh, beautiful. Look at the birds. Oh. I wonder what color it's gonna be. The jewel. Welcome back. Your piece is done. He opens the box gently. His lips perk up into a smile. Oh, perfect. Just what I envisioned. Where shall we start then, Twyla? This man's not wasting any time, I see. Tell me a bit about yourself, and what kind of enchantment you're looking for. About myself? I suppose it does help provide context on how you are to invoke the requisite emotion from me, yes. A peculiar line of work you've found yourself in, I must say. At the intersection of several fields of inquiry. And an undeniable element of mystique on top of it. That is, considering how little established knowledge there is of conduits such as yourself. How my colleagues would salivate at the opportunity to study and experiment on you. Really? Don't you worry though, Twyla. I wouldn't subject you to that. I understand that us scholarly types are bothersome and overzealous at the best of time. Perhaps like I'm being just now. Lucky for you, my fields are Zenoan history and moral philosophy, so I won't be roping you into any experiments. That's a relief. You must be a professor then. That's right, I teach full-time. Though as of late, I have been spending some time off pursuing my own research. It's still in the early stages, but I'll be exploring the ethical ramifications of chaos handling attitudes and practices of post-Stoic Zenoa. My eyes and ears perk up. Though of course it's not at all specific, so as you see I have plenty of work. My attention is pulled away from Antonia's words. She's eyeballing me through the window! The lady with the sunken eyes and mustard beret is back to bother me, once more glaring grumpily through the shop front windows. I freeze up, another strong wind bellows through the street. Anxious and Anxious and weak, I cannot muster a smile as the wind carries her hideous beret away again. I finally let go of my breath and quietly thank the forces for once. Get it? It's about time they do something good for me. I'm sorry, you were saying? That's okay. The forces have said it better than I could have. Zenoan's Chaos cases have been rising like never before, as you may be aware. Like never before? And because of this, I wanted to explore the ethical responsibilities placed upon individuals and how they've differed since Zenoan Stoicism. We must still be better off than before the disaster, right? You would think so, Twyla, and I would too. But the truth is, as of late, chaos causes have risen to all-time peaks in Zenoa. And yes, that includes chaos cases leading up to the GPD. You won't hear it much on the news, but the sad truth is that we're at the precedence of another disaster if nothing is done soon. The sole reason people aren't in alarm is because the chaos response sector has grown threefold since those days. The Great Chaos Disaster of 1961. Are we really in more dire straits than back then? Uncle told me all sorts of harrowing stories of the tsunami caused by the GPD. Great Chaos Disaster. Of all the countless lives washed away by the forces. If the riots of the Great Chaos Disaster were the result of Stoicism, what's the issue now? I feel fear grip me again, and the winds rattle the shop front windows. Antonio, I know it's sort of off topic, but I just wanted to know.
Oh!
Not at all, Twyla. Go ahead. I'm more than happy to discuss my research topic with eager minds. Why are chaos cases at record heights? How have our responsibilities changed? Why are they? What could possibly have caused chaos cases to reach these heights? I'm afraid there's no simple answer to that question. No one that explains the situation in its entirety, at least. You see, there are many different views on the subject that vary with one's political alignment and even socio-economic. Just tell me what you think. Maybe it'll give me a more rounded idea of the kind of person you are after all. Of course. Apologies. I didn't mean to undermine your expertise. You're good. Besides, I have very little expertise to undermine if I'm honest. I would beg to differ on your behalf. However, I suspect your expertise will demonstrate itself through the course of this conversation. But to answer your question, he thinks for a moment. His gaze drifts upwards, then back down towards me. It's quite a difficult question if I'm honest, though I do have some thoughts for you. But I'm curious, what do you think the reason is for this unprecedented spike in outbursts? Me? You're the professor here. Exactly. I'm always talking to other professors and scholars about these issues, but rarely anyone else. So I want your perspective. I'm still in the process of forming a comprehensive knowledge base on the subject, after all. Well, I don't have much of an idea myself. Obviously, there are those extremists that speak fondly of the Stoic times.
Aha!
Of course, the infamously reactionary traditionalists and their rose-tinted idealism. Right. Yeah, those guys. And then there are plenty who blame technology, the internet, social media, and so on for creating distance between people like never before. Correct. Many studies have been done in pursuit of answers to that debate, but nothing conclusive has risen yet, I feel. As for what I feel, other than technological advancements and Stoicism, the only thing that really distinguishes modern Zenoa is, I think, to my encounter with the neighbor this morning, tell our story of Hain. I feel there is this incredibly destructive attitude among Zenoans towards those who are unable to regulate their emotions. Excellent, Twyla. That's a very perceptive observation. I'm shocked. His gold eyes sparkle with enthusiasm. I've always loved how the best teachers are able to exude so much passion. I bet Antonia is a great professor. I'm sure you've realized yourself, but most Zenoans are far too absorbed in the norms of contemporary society to recognize its abnormalities. A friend of mine told me about it. He's pretty smart, I guess. I'm impressed either way. Kudos to you and your friend. It may seem insignificant to you, but you've made my day. I suspect my response to the question will coincide with the idea you've raised, so I'll get around to that later. But personally, I feel the rise in Payos cases is the result of an enduring negligence from the Zenoan state, and perhaps from us Zenoans too. A city-state of millions, a melting pot of cultures and perspectives, and yet we are hesitant to reinstate any real response to Payos. Since the riots and the tsunami, the tremendous disaster that was the GPD, we have not yet rebuilt the fabric of our society. Meaning we are yet to replace Stoicism. Any country founded upon a fundamental, guiding philosophy ceases to maintain the order it requires should this philosophy be abolished. Meaning... What I mean is that the absence of Stoicism, we have no ideological or practical response to Payos as a nation. Antonio continues excitedly, and I rack my brain trying to desperately keep up. Even Zayesa has their materialism and pleasure regulation, which aren't perfect responses to Payos, of course, but it is still something of a response nonetheless. And I'm sure plenty of Payos cases are prevented as a result of it. I hear Lau saunter from the break room behind me, his interest no doubt piqued by all this talk of Payos. What strategies are there to manage the risk of Payos in Zenoa? None whatsoever. But couldn't you argue that the bad response is worse than no response at all? Of course, which leads us to the current state of Zenoa, where the people have effectively formed their own response. One that is based solely upon fear and fear alone. Not wrong. I feel like I've heard this one before. Societal expectations surrounding emotional regulation have increased drastically. The data shows as much. Zenoans have developed this stigma?
Oh.
Yes, exactly. We built this stigma around emotional vulnerability that has never been so extreme. This societal response has formed in the absence of an official, state-sanctioned response. And, as you so precedently suspected, it's done more evil than good. Every year there are more studies linking this social pressure to emotional vulnerability. meaning chances of outbursts occurring are higher than ever, and repeat victim cases are more common. But why hasn't Zenoan State done anything? Why has there been no official response in 60 years? Aha! The killer always returns to the scene of crime, as they say. Again, the culprit is fear. Fear? Indeed. I take it you are aware of how pivotal emotional liberty was in the fall of Stoicism. I think so, but I wouldn't mind a refresher, if possible. It's been a while since high school history. Oh, of course. I couldn't possibly resist educating an inquisitive mind like yours, Twyla. You see, emotional liberty was a key contributor to public dissent and the riots of the GPD. Stoicism can become an incredibly demanding philosophy if one observes it to its fullest. Forcing an extreme oppressive interpretation of Stoicism upon an entire country's population was implausible and fraught with danger, chief of which being the possibility of mass public outrage should people feel their emotional liberties are being overregulated. So how does this link back to fear? Since the public riots for emotional liberty grew heated enough to cause a tsunami, it remains a sore spot for Zenoans. And as a result, the state is extremely hesitant to enforce any policies which encroach on the individual's emotional liberties. But of course, there are many, myself included, who feel our emotional liberties have been managed somewhat to help contain these outbursts. You're right. I find it hard to disagree with your perspective on all of this, Antonio. Perhaps I could challenge your worldview then, if I may interrupt. Sure, I don't mind. I'm Lau. Charmed to meet you, Professor. Don't make me laugh, Lau. Please, call me Antonio. I wonder, what do you think of Stoicism? Not necessarily pre-GPD Zenoan Stoicism, but the philosophy in general. Do you feel there are any merits to the philosophy? Perhaps even those that are applicable to contemporary Zenoa? What? Where is all of this coming from? Of course, I'd argue even that there are plenty of merits to the philosophy. Its effectiveness can clearly vary quite drastically, and I feel it must be molded around the individual to be most effective. But on the whole, it's a respectable school of thought that stood the test of time for good reason. Is this a prank? Where are the cameras? And your thoughts on its public perception, if I may ask? Right. Of course, Stoicism as a school of thought has developed extremely negative associations. Associations that fundamentally misconstrued the virtues to which a Stoic aspires. History has painted the philosophy in colors that reflect the times of the GPD, oppressively dark blues and bloody reds. But in truth, the downfall of Stoicism was purely circumstantial. You're a wise man, Antonio. Truth be told, I've felt the same for a while now. Thank you. I appreciate the sentiment. Though I'm far more appreciative of the traces like yourself that are aware of the nuances of Zenoa's history, especially from an ethical lens. While the two of them have their bro moment, I find myself dumbfounded. Guys, what is going on? Stoicism was misunderstood. You can't possibly be serious. I mean, I understand Zenoa is struggling without any direction, but Stoicism caused so much harm, right? That's what we've been led to believe, but the bottom line is that all that harm cannot rightly be attributed to Stoicism. It's an idea that I've only ever encountered sporadically in the academic world. And even then, never is it discussed in more reputable journals. But this misunderstanding deserves to be brought to light. Stoicism was used as a scapegoat to help the state sweep the blame and accountability for the GPD under the rug. But now it only serves as another basis for this overwhelming fear ingrained in Zenoans. Instead, we should fear the tyranny of those in power at the time, their sheer disregard for their people, their fanatical pursuits of the invulnerable state. in extremist idealism, so frenziedly wrenched from the peace it ventured towards tyranny. The invulnerable state. Interesting. Right. Perhaps we should start simple first. Oh, yes, of course. Apologies. I am prone to digression, especially at the hands of injustice. Twyla, what do you know about Stoicism? From what I remember, Stoicism is about using logic and reason to prevent emotional thinking and maintain a tranquil spirit, right? Overall, a good summary. Though if you think back to what we discussed yesterday, Stoicism isn't so much about preventing emotional thinking as yesterday. Yes, much of what I talked about yesterday aligns with Stoic thought, especially our discussion of control. He trails off, or perhaps I just stopped listening. A visceral shock ripples through me. Yesterday, you were teaching me about Stoicism? Yes, but as Antonio mentioned, it's not at all what Sanoans tend to think of. Why? What? You didn't even bother telling me? Not even a quick, hey, by the way, I'm teaching you the kind of thing that led to thousands of people dying? You can't just do that without telling me about it. I can't look him in the eye. How did we even get here? Look, Twy, what I was advocating was nothing like the Stoicism you've heard of. That's what Antonio's been talking about. Zenoan's state should recognize that. But they don't. They're still too busy controlling the damage done from the GPD to do anything worthwhile. You just can't trust them to discern right from wrong these days. Apparently neither can you. Apparently you can't discern right from wrong either. I don't get it. I thought you were helping me. You're a tracer, Lau. What do you get from hiding things from me? Twyla, please, I wasn't hiding anything. Listen, I know I shouldn't... All of a sudden, a loud vibration rumbles from his pocket. He whips his phone out quickly and grumbles a bit more. Sorry, but I have to go. This is serious. We'll talk later, okay? I mumble something in dismissal, looking away from him and Antonio. He rushes out the door, leaving the tension in the air that feels unapproachable. It only takes a few seconds for me to regret lashing out at Lau, though I still feel icky, and I don't know why. Despite it all, it's not like I don't trust what the two of them had to say. It's just, suddenly I remember that Antonio is, after all, a customer. Sorry you had to see that. Let's get back to what we were talking about. So, this necklace. Take a breather, Twyla, you're okay. Like I said, no need to worry about fake pleasantries with me. Besides, this is, in part, my doing, if I'm honest. I've gotten too accustomed to the philosophy classroom, but you can't just challenge deeply held personal beliefs wherever you go. That's okay. I try to get personal with customers, to be able to take their emotions, but not that personal. But I think I'm okay now. Blooming. Where were we then? I wonder, when you arrived, you mentioned you weren't in great spirits. Could that have been something to do with why you're giving your partner this necklace? Amazing. You're exactly right, Twyla. Unbelievably accurate. Could you tell me, not that I intend to derail the conversation once more, but that's alright. My questions are what led us here after all. How did you piece those fragments of information together, my partner and my woes? It cannot be merely by chance, can it? It is simply an intuitive knowledge, or have you broken it down into a practical science of sorts? Huh? A science? No, of course not. Well then, you must have been training for years. I'd almost forgotten why I was here, and yet you must have been extrapolating together a personal profile in order to... You're giving me too much credit, Antonio. I've only been training for a couple weeks. I'm just trying to do my job. A nervous laugh bubbles out of me. It's like a whiplash for the spirit, being so openly criticized by the neighbors, and then this. I try my best to keep my muddled feelings dormant. Fascinating. If only we all showed such natural prowess and dedication in our professions. But as you mentioned, I have been concerned about my partner. Her name is Kaylin. I feel she is in dire need of very specific emotion. Indignation. Anger towards injustices. Oh, he already has an idea of the enchanting emotion.
Aha!
You may think, as I once did myself, in the blissful youth, that any kind of anger has no place within the spirit, especially in Zenoa. The ancient Stoics recognized justice as one of the irreplaceable cardinal virtues, though they did tend to rebuke any form of anger. There he goes again. However, the Platonists before them recognized the need for righteous indignation in combating injustices. Of course, one must tame such dispositions with a healthy dose of rational. Antonio, I really do find this interesting, I promise, but I'll need you to tell me how this relates to your partner, Kaylin. Oh, I just can't help myself. Philosophy and history are so very ingrained in our day-to-day. You see? It's inescapable. He reminds me of my uncle yet again. Gentle and reserved, but playful. Kaylin, yes, where to begin? She and I make a good team, truly, and I remind myself to remain internally grateful for this. But there's one thing I want to help her with. One tiny reservation I have has me second-guessing engagement. See, the closer I've gotten to Kaylin, the more keenly I've become aware of her resolve and strength. She sacrifices so much to ensure the people close to her can be at their best. At first I admired it every day we spent together, but soon I started to see the real harm it was causing her. I believe this harm comes from the fundamental reason she makes these sacrifices, an inability and reluctance to hold others accountable, and the preference to shore up for their weaknesses herself. So she's a people pleaser, got it. Authors, he's really thought this through. With a hint of indignation by her side, I believe Kaylin will be more inclined to stand up for herself, rather than sacrifice her well-being. Again, people pleaser? That sounds difficult. Can you give me an example of the kind of sacrifices Kaylin makes? Yes. You see, I can become quite engrossed in my work, which I realize may not come as a surprise to you. Not one bit. There have been several instances where this has upset Kaylin and even caused her to feel terrible for weeks. Without realizing, I've neglected my duty to care for her on many an occasion. And believe me, I've always terribly regretted doing so. Yet, I'm only made aware of my shortcomings long after the fact, when she finally tells me all about it. I see. And I've tried to become more cognizant of her mood, to realize when I could be paying more attention to her. But sometimes the hours they just pass by as I'm working. I get so engrossed in marking papers, for instance, and it just slips my mind entirely. I can't help but feel a little bitter that he's complaining about how engrossing his work is, how intensely it interests him. But I squash it for now. This isn't about you, Twyla. And what role do you see this presence of indignation playing here? Right. My theory is that with a little indignation to fire her out, Kaylin would feel more comfortable confronting me in the moment. This may seem a little silly question, but you're sure that Kaylin isn't happy confronting you when she's comfortable doing so? Not at all a silly question. One that must be asked, in fact. But yes, I'm sure. Last year, during the exam period, I was marking papers on the state of Zenoan ethics. And with all that's been going on in the country, I took the marking extra seriously. Months later, Kaylin told me she'd felt my absence then like never before, as if she was invisible to me. Do you make similar sacrifices for her? I have thought about it countless times, because I cannot in good faith say that I do. Without a single word of complaint, It's her taking the burden every single time without fail. It's kind of one-sided, but you know, she also does need to communicate that. If we're to be together for the rest of our lives, we simply cannot go on like this, with her suffering in silence. I wish she were more demanding of me, because every day he trails off, his voice faltering as a sudden gloom overwhelms him. I study his face and wait a few moments. Every day a part of me worries that something I've done has made her heart ache, and I'm completely oblivious. Fair enough. Honestly, yeah. If she won't talk to you about it, you know? Makes me wonder why she doesn't, if it's like some kind of past trauma or something. His eyes don't meet mine for several long moments. Perhaps I can switch tracks to something more uplifting. Antonio, I was wondering, what do you like most about her? What do you think Kaylin likes most about you? Sure. What she likes most about me? A clever question, Twyla. Well, I cannot truly speak on her behalf, but she seems to like how I'm very rational and thoughtful. As well as we've established, I still have room to grow, of course. As you know, I speak often about philosophy and history, and I'm incredibly lucky that she seems to enjoy when I do so. I think the people around you feel lucky to listen to someone so knowledgeable, Antonio. I know I have today. He manages a modest smile. There's been plenty of times I've helped her think through her issues too, which she's always been grateful for. A zoo! You see, she's been a zookeeper for years, which has been no easy feat. Our forces, of course, with all the zoos closing. Precisely, chaos concerns have caused a lot of trouble for her, but a few job opportunities too. Once my research on chaos led me to people with intense fear over everyday animals like dogs and birds. And Kaylin helped Traces work to overcome these fears, undoubtedly saving Chaos Response Sector from dealing with many an outburst. That's amazing, Antonio. We've had to be creative in finding work for her several times like this. Early in her career, I helped Kaylin get in contact with schools to deliver talks and exhibitions. But of course, I'm not under the illusion that I deserve any credit for her achievements as a zookeeper. Kaylin remained steadfast in her pursuit of the career, which was fraught with misfortune. But yet again, I digress. Did you have any other questions? You've talked to Kaylin about this already, no? I have, but Kaylin has this habit. If it's a problem that affects her and only her, she'll dismiss and underplay it till it starts to die out. Which is how long? A few million years at the very least. What hurts the most though, is that every time I ask her about it, she compares herself to me. To you? Yes. You know, how I'm the, well, stoic type. He's more than a little hesitant to bring it up again. Bosses, I need to talk it out with Lau after this. I've been accustomed to giving little significance to the words and actions of those beyond my reach that may otherwise cause me unease. And I think Kaylin has developed a sort of admiration of this, and attempts to replicate it. Though a part of her does not seem to embrace the stoic mindset as naturally. She tried to remove herself from what doesn't concern her, but sometimes I feel she'd be better off accepting she is concerned. And that doesn't go against your values as a stoic? Not at all. In fact, part of being a stoic is not enforcing your worldview upon others, and accepting that the stoic way of life is not easy. During the exam period last year, when she struggled the most, a window in our apartment shattered suddenly. We thought it was just a strange occurrence at the time, but later on, after she told me of how she felt back then, I can't help but imagine it was due to how upset she was. Skies above. Do you understand now why I want to help Kaylin with this situation of ours? I think so, but is there a reason why helping Kaylin is the only option here? Shouldn't there be a more of a compromise in this situation? With you changing to accommodate her too? Part of me is shocked. I have the strength to say such a thing so directly. But it seems appropriate with all of this talk of encouraging confrontation. Ah yes, there is more to this problem that I've let on. You are correct though. The fault is not hers alone. Part of my attempts to resolve this has involved a concentrated effort to be more perceptive and considerate. But in truth, and believe me, I do understand your line of thinking, as it hasn't been easy for me to accept that she needs to change. Yet it is true. This inability to stand up for herself has hurt her beyond our relationship alone, you see. I didn't want to speak on her behalf of struggles that are hers, but perhaps it's necessary. The plot thickens. As I've mentioned, Fortune could have been much kinder to Kaylin over the years. I think Fortune was very kind to lead her to you. He laughed half-heartedly. Perhaps. He trails off and I can tell he's started second-guessing himself. You're not doubting that, are you? Huh? No, well, somewhat. I just... He lets out a heavy sigh. Never mind, it's nothing. As I was saying. I let it go. Whatever it was clearly on his mind. Kaylin's unfortunately struggled to stand up to others for several years now. Just forget it. Probably wasn't a big deal, yeah? Whether it was towards professors that marked her inexplicably harshly during our uni years, he's always got something on his mind. Must have just been an errant thought. Or her parents, though that's another issue. Sorry, Antonio. I have to know. Tell me. Know what? What were you thinking about earlier? Stoicism? No. Just now. Something was clearly bothering you. What was it? He laughs, that same nervous laugh again. Tell me. Alright. You just reminded me of why I came here. For Kaylin's anniversary present, no? Yes. I was on the fence about whether I should use the occasion to propose to her, you see? But lately I've been somewhat unsure. I wait patiently. I'm not sure if it's what she wants anymore. Anymore? She's told me a couple times that she wants to get married soon. Aw. How sweet. But on the other hand, this guy's above this guy. Wait, so what are you waiting for, Antonio? Well, that was a few years ago, and since then she hasn't brought up the subject at all. And I've noticed she's a bit antsy, let's say whenever something related to engagement or marriage comes up. I just can't help but feel she doesn't want... Hold on. Why are you here? Huh? You're here to help her with her problem of standing up to others, right? Don't you think that since this must be a really huge deal for her, she'd be reluctant to confront you about it? In truth, that didn't occur to me. Antonio? No wonder she's antsy. She must be all up in her head about when you're going to pop the question. Poor Kaylin must be second guessing which outfit to wear and how much makeup to put on every time you two go out. Right. I suppose that could very well be the case. You suppose? Stop supposing, dude, please! This guy's hopeless. We need to do something about this quickly, Kaylin. You know what? I'll marry you, Kaylin. Forget Antonio. But hold on, the same could be said for the opposite. If she's having doubts about marriage, she could be scared to confront me about that too. Well, maybe. A very small maybe. But Kaylin wouldn't want to mislead you like that. She'd feel guilty, no? Yes, that is also true. And honestly, for what it's worth, you two seem like lovebirds to me. In lives fraught with misfortune and the tendency to think about complex things a lot, you have each other to rely on. Isn't that great? Earth below, I'm projecting, aren't I? Well, I'll put a lid on it. I suppose I should look at it that way, yes. But trust yourself. Your judgment is much better than mine, of course. Just some food for thought. So, what were you going to tell me earlier of how Kaylin struggled to confront others beyond your relationship? Right, back to business. It's somewhat of an unfortunate quirk of hers, really. Kaylin will face whatever obstacle fate throws at her with a headstrong enthusiasm. Yet, if one of those obstacles happened to involve another person, she starts to crumble. The worst case of this was a couple years back when she worked at the Heritage Park in Rufus. The management there cared little for the animals' welfare, and of course Kaylin was the complete opposite. But she avoided confrontation and instead worked a little extra improving the animals' habitats and feeding practices. Initially, she was working 5 or 10 minutes extra, but soon she was trudging through the front door hours after her shift, nothing but defeat in her eyes. Did she ever muster the courage to confront the management about it? She did once, after much encouragement from me and a couple friends. But of course, they dismissed her complaints with very little care. And she gave up any hope in getting through to them. No. Soon a tracer was knocking on our door, informing us there was a trail of cracked concrete and wilted grass all the way from the station right up to our doorstep. The very next day, Kaylin resigned. She had little choice. Poor girl. Indeed, she became quite close to the wildlife there too. Occasionally, she'll remember the terrible conditions they lived in, and that look of defeat will return. Antonio wasn't overstating the cruel fate Kaylin's experienced, huh? I wish I could imbue some good fortune into this necklace instead. Yes, if only. Although, if a little indignation can give her the strength she needs, perhaps Kaylin can do without luck. Alright, let's put some fire back into her eyes. Can you think of any strong memories of feeling indignation? Yes, I thought of one, though I'm afraid it's not exactly flattering. But I suppose I've already divulged plenty about Kaylin and I. He has a memory prepared too. He's practically doing my job for me. You're right, Antonio. It's too late to be embarrassed. Go on. Right, this story is from my early 20s when I was far more impetuous and had somewhat of an unfounded confidence about me. That's alright. I assure you, under no circumstances would I act with such abject disregard of the nuanced whatever. Now spill. So, at the time, Kaylin and I had been together for just over 2 years, yet her parents had never approved of our relationship. They were keenly against it, in fact, and I never received a proper answer as to why. But they weren't so much prohibiting us from dating as they were simply being disapproving. I remember this angered me even more. What did they know about me, I thought? And Kaylin was afraid to confront her parents? Yes. But well, you see, the situation had not escalated over the years. But even this seemed to be a source of heartache for Kaylin. Their constant disapproval had her feeling strangely distant from her parents. I recall Kaylin trying to explain it. They would go about as normal, but remained steadfast in their disapproval. We'd be speaking on the phone and I'd hear her mother call out, "Have you had dinner yet?" Followed casually by, "Are you talking to that boy again? I told you not to make your father upset over such childish things." No, in front of you? I'm afraid so. She would be speechless for a minute or two after her parents said such things, as if in pure disbelief. Kaylin could handle it at first. They weren't overly harsh, just unwavering. 2 years later, and they were no less or more disapproving as when she first told them. By that point, even passing comments from her parents would leave a cloud hanging over her all day long. And you still don't know why they disapproved of you two by this stage? Indeed, her mother would only give vague answers whenever she'd ask. You're not ready, and focus on your studies, she'd tell Kaylin. But her main issue with our relationship was simply that Kaylin was upsetting her father by pursuing me. Why was he upset? Kaylin wanted desperately to know the answer to this question as well. You see, her parents migrated from UB when they were your age, with very little to their name. Ever since then, Kaylin's father has worked from dawn to dusk, 7 days a week, running the family restaurant. So seldom she was able to talk to him. Yet there was one day she managed to ask him, the only time she'd been able to muster up enough courage and had the chance to talk to her father. She asked why our relationship upset him. He hesitated, and then he said, "Just listen to what your mother says, Kaylin." No, why? But her mother told her exactly. Is this the part where you start feeling indignant? Because I definitely am. It took 2 years of Kaylin in miserable confusion over interactions like these for my indignation to finally break me. I did not want to intervene in her personal life, but I couldn't stand idle either. Yeah, they're lying to you. They're duty heads. I was at the point of risking chaos. She was well past it. Something had to be done. And not later, not even soon, immediately. So I went right to the man at his restaurant. I yanked the door open and the shrill of the bell reverberated through the rustic interior. A Ubian drama was playing on a small television. Something about how quaint it all felt brought me to my senses. I froze in the doorway. I had come without informing Kaylin or her parents, and arrived empty-handed at that too. That was not how I'd anticipated my first proper meeting with her father. I realized Kaylin's dad was right there, wiping down tables. Before I can think twice, I approach him. I channel all he has told me and focus on his story. It took some time for him to recognize me. As I asked if we could talk, he looked around the empty restaurant and sighed, gesturing for me to take a seat. Look, Kaylin has been struggling recently, and I need to know. Struggling? What do you mean? She wants you to approve of us, and it's always same story. I don't wish to speak for Kaylin, of course. It's just, well, I imagine Kaylin is concerned. I don't need to know what you're imagining, okay? Right now, I think this is all just imagined. Is he racist? I had that thought before, but I don't know. She's scared to confront you. She's tried before to no success. Scared? I imagine. I believe it comes from a place of care. Fine. Then tell me. Well, I believe we're both ready for a serious relationship. I mean, it's been 2 years already now. And she's still keeping up with the university work, so there's nothing to worry about there. She's been diligently saving up, as have I, and we've also been thinking about our future. I know it's only 2 years, and of course, I've doubts we'll be able to buy a house in the near future in this economy. Always young people complaining about economy. Need to work harder before complaining. I'm almost 65 and even I don't complain about economy. It's bad for spirits, always complaining. I don't doubt that. I just wanted... Yeah, close it. Remember we're washing walls today, so hurry, okay? He'd get distracted a couple times and start talking in rapid Ubian to the staff. I was beginning to understand Kaylin's difficulties getting through to him. Then again, he dropped everything to see this conversation through to the end. Yes, continue. We just want to know why you and Kaylin's mother disapprove so vehemently. Look, I don't think we are so vehemently. We are not like those parents, you know? Try to protect children from everything. You know that one? What they call lion parent or something? Tiger parents? Tiger, lion, whatever. I don't want to do that much. I want Kaylin making mistakes, you know? People have to make some mistakes, otherwise not learning anything, no? But this, I can't let her make too much mistake that her life is destroyed. So you believe her dating me is too much of a mistake? No, not you. You are not too much mistake. Kaylin just... I don't know anything about you, but you are good. Coming here, talking to me, very good thing. Very brave, no? Thanks. But Kaylin is not ready for serious thing yet. I cannot approve. But why, if I may ask? Kaylin is too young. Still doesn't know anything. And too nice. Nice is good, but too much is sometimes bad. Very bad can be. Like I said, about mistake, you know? She is still doing silly things also. Even maybe you are thinking. Kaylin wants to be zookeeper. If you want to go zoo, from here, you have to drive for 2 hours. Or the zoo is closing and she still wants to be working in zoo only. I don't know. Why zoo? Why not vet? Or doctor is better. No, best. All of this. And she wants boyfriend as well? Serious relationship is dangerous. If you cannot handle how many outbursts is because of relationship. Too many already. And Kaylin's life is already so busy. Too much for spirit, you know? If life has too much happening, too much for young people's mind to handle, then spirit will have too much as well. Definitely. 100%. I don't want my daughter causing chaos problem. She is still good girl. Just too young and too many things happening already. Understand? I guess that kind of makes sense, yeah. Bosses, that's actually surprisingly rational, isn't it? Pretty much, yes. Yeah. What did you say? I felt my indignation flare back up again upon hearing her father's feelings. Not in hatred, annoyance or frustration, it was a strangely tranquil, impassionate indignation. I understood him almost completely. His impression of Kaylin is not inaccurate. It was perceptive from a place of deep understanding. Yet, this was an understanding that was wrong, perceptive, accurate, and fundamentally incorrect. My anger was instead directed towards the sheer injustice of the situation, the utter absurdity of it all. Everything I loved about Kaylin was being used to distance her from me. Yeah, pretty much. Her heart, her love of the zoo and animals, like all of that is why her dad's like, no, she won't. She's bad. She's too young. The idea her virtues could be misconceived so blatantly as flaws that simply do not exist, it enraged me. Even though it was reasonable her father should think in such a way. No, perhaps it was because of how reasonable it all was. I felt Kaylin's suffering could have been avoided. Her flaws could have been something to work on, not something to keep quiet about and pretend could not be consciously improved. I feel Antonio's indignation ignite my spirit. I retain it. Not yet. But of course, I did not say exactly what I felt. You must accept that when one makes such a reasonable misjudgment that they are acting in earnest and simply somewhat ignorant. I do understand, yes, though I have much to say. But first I want to thank you and Kaylin's mother. I am very glad that Kaylin has such considerate and caring parents. Your reservations clearly come with good intentions. However, I must disagree with them. There is no reason that Kaylin's relentless ambition or caring nature should be indicative of any sort of immaturity, or any sort of inability to handle the inevitable difficulties that a serious relationship possesses. I believe you are correct that this has been the case in the past. Of course, Kaylin was once immature. In the last 3 years alone that I've known Kaylin, I've seen her recognize plenty of her shortcomings and grow beyond them, many of which you have described quite accurately. Kaylin's unwavering desire to become a zookeeper was once somewhat irrational, potentially even silly at times. But it no longer is. Kaylin is the top of her class and has far more practical experience with zookeeping than her peers. There is no doubt she can become a successful zookeeper if she puts her mind to it, no matter how many zoos close in Zenoa. I have seen Kaylin make plenty of those redeemable mistakes you speak of that inspire growth, and she has learnt plenty from them. Perhaps the fact she is unable to have this conversation I'm having with you now shall be another one of those. She has even helped me overcome my own shortcomings and learnt from my mistakes countless times. In the past, I concede that I would not have been able to argue against your reservations in good faith, but I have waited until now to ask directly for your approval for a reason. Because after all we've both overcome, I'm now certain that we should pursue a future together. Not that we can, but that we should. Kaylin is ready, and so am I. Okay. I will tell to Kaylin's mother, and we will think about it. Thank you. What is your name? Antonio. Antonio. Very nice name. My grandfather's name, you know? Oh, that's nice. Have you had dinner yet, Antonio? Aw, go feed him. Alright, we need, yeah, probably the anger, yeah. Which one is indignation? I'm pretty sure it's this one. Indignation, that's it. Healthy dose of anger. To transfer payouts. Okay. Specific order. Oh, wrong one. Oh. Changed it. I changed it to be easier. It's like, wow, you suck. Do it again. What color? What color? It's like a reddy purpley color. A little bit. Finally, I propel Antonio's indignation from my spirit through my fingers and into the necklace box. It all but entirely leaves me. A tiny fiery remnant burns bright within. Looks like you've done it. Whew. That was a heck of a lot of indignation to work with, Antonio. But thank the forces at work. Here's hoping the stars and back that this gives Kaylin the fire she needs. Here's hoping. Thank you very much for your assistance today, Twyla. It was quite the experience. Great. I'm so glad I got to hear you and Kaylin's story, Antonio. Sincerely. Please do come back someday and bring Kaylin along too. Perhaps I could make your engagement ring after all. I can't imagine anyone better for the job. But just one thing, Twyla. Considering my paper may venture into payoff studies, I may have to use you and your conduit prowess to research after all. Would you mind being interviewed sometime? Sure? Excellent. In the meantime, I'll make sure to point anyone who needs jewelry in your direction. Deal. I'll do all the interviews you want then. Bloomin'. Thanks again, Twyla. I'll be taking my leave then. Now then, all the best. Take care, Antonio.